Well, what's going on, everybody? My name is Justin Calhoun. I'm the Soil and Cropping Systems Extension Specialist for the University of Missouri. I'm also the one that is responsible for doing the peanut agronomy research for the University of Missouri. And this video is just a summary of the research trials that we conducted in 2022. Mainly putting this together for the Missouri Peanut Growers Association to give them a kind of a review of what we did with their research funding and for them to share with the Missouri peanut growers. And so this video is located on YouTube. So if you're viewing, you've seen the link in the email or something like that, you can always go to YouTube and search this so that you can come back, watch it, find any information that you may find interesting or share it with someone else who may not be on this email chain. So just kicking it off real quick, we'll go ahead and jump into the trials that we conducted. The first thing that you guys asked for in 2022 that we delivered on in terms of research was looking at calcium applications rather in peanuts. And the first question we wanted to answer was, is there a regional need in southeast Missouri for calcium application to our peanuts? And I know some of you guys have had some success with applying calcium products like gypsum to your peanuts. I knew something, but just really couldn't call it up on my own until I heard it at a meeting the other day. I have a speculation as to what that success might be. I'll talk about that here in a minute. But for this particular component of this research study, we wanted to look at the regional need, and we're really utilizing Georgia's recommendations here. So looking at their recommendation of if it's less than 500 Malic 3 calcium on our soil test, or if we have a calcium-potassium ratio that's less than 3 to 1, then we wouldn't recommend making an application of gypsum. And so we really wanted to know how many fields in Missouri fall into this category. And so we looked at, I think this is 14 different sites across southeast Missouri. We sampled these fields in the pegging zone about the time that we would be worried about calcium applications there around the beginning of pegging to see how many of these sites fit within our category. I do want to give a shout out to all those that helped us identify these sites and allow us to come out and pull samples. If you're interested in this in 2023 and want to know specifically what your calcium and your calcium to potassium ratio is, shoot me a text or give me an email or a call. I'll have my contact at the end of this presentation, and we'll try to get you on the list. But if we look at the results from that, across those 14 sites, we did not have any that were below 500 Malic 3 potassium or calcium, and then we did not have anything that was below a 3 to 1 calcium to potassium ratio. And so on none of these sites would we have recommended applying a application of gypsum. Now we still wanted though to look at a rate response, and so we kind of made these two possibilities up. Okay, should we not be concerned with gypsum applications, or do Georgia's rules not apply to us? So we really still wanted to see that response in small plot studies. So we conducted small plot studies with 4 replications, 4 reps at each location, 2 locations, one here at Portageville, one at Clarkton, and we looked at a non-treated check versus 250, 500, 750, and 1,000 pounds of gypsum per acre, and that is 22% calcium. These treatments were applied at the beginning of pegging. And I do want to make the note here that both of these sites fit in with our sites that we sampled there across the boot hill, in that we would not have recommended, based upon our calcium levels and our calcium potassium ratio, to apply a gypsum application at either of these locations. So if we look at the rate response, just as what we kind of expected looking at Georgia's recommendations, we did not see a yield response out of applying gypsum. Taking out of this p-value, I'm looking for something less than 0.05 to say that it's statistically significant, and we're far from that. So no statistical differences in our yields here. We did not see a rate response out of applying these gypsum products to our peanuts. Now, I do want to say this, and this is my speculation on what may be happening in some of these instances where we are seeing success with these applications. I was recently at a meeting in Arkansas. An Arkansas Extension Group was presenting to a bunch of peanut growers there, and I was there just taking in some of the information that they had. And one thing was said that, again, I should have known, and I do know, but just haven't thought about, is that gypsum is actually calcium sulfate. So the positive response that we're seeing, that some of you guys may be seeing out of applying gypsum, may be from the sulfur rather from the calcium. And so that might be some work that we want to do in the future at looking at sulfur applications to see if we see a response out of it. And if we do, that may be an explanation for some of these responses we're seeing rather than the calcium in those products. I don't know. That's just speculation. The other thing that you guys had asked about, excuse me, was looking at protectile calcium or a growth regulator in peanut. This is something that I have a lot of experience with from my days at Mississippi State. So we're continuing some of that work. Mainly looking at Apogee and Kudos. Those are our two ProHex products. Again, if you guys have talked to me about this, you know my stance on Apogee. Great product, not knocking anything against Apogee or BASF, but if you look at the fine print of their label, it's not labeled in Missouri. So as an extension representative, as someone from the University of Missouri, I cannot make a recommendation to apply it because it is not listed as one of the states labeled for peanut use. I haven't heard an update from this. I don't know that they have this fixed, but until they do, for the record, I can't recommend it. But I do believe Kudos is labeled in Missouri, so that can be an alternative ProHex product. We did do some studies in 2022. Again, they were much like our calcium studies, small plot studies, replicated 4 times at 2 locations. We had 2 factors. We applied this ProHex either in a split or a single application, and we did 5 different rates: quarter, half, 3/4, 1, and 2x rate. And we went off that maximum 21.75 ounces per acre per year. That is on the Apogee and the Kudos label, I believe. And so if we look at the yield response out of that, again, statistically, take note of this p-value, we don't see a significant response. You could make the argument that maybe see a heightened yield response out of this quarter X or this half X rate when it was applied in a split, but it doesn't kind of really trend out with anything. And so I'm not too confident in that. We might see some yield responses. It's hard to break out when we're talking about thousands of pounds. It's hard to break out small differences. And so maybe as we add more data to this data set, some of this will begin to separate out statistically. But I'm not seeing a yield response out of this compared to our non-treated check. Now, I do want to give this caveat. It's the same thing that I think that I saw at Mississippi State. Yield responses, direct yield responses from ProHex are rare. But what we typically see is a reduction of above ground plant matter, and that can actually result in higher combining speeds. And that is the constant that I hear from growers. That's the constant that I have seen personally, is that we do kind of increase in our combine speeds. And I also think they dig better. If we don't have all that plant matter, instead of when we dig them and those peanuts kind of flip up and the nuts are kind of on the side, they actually flip completely over a little bit better, and those tap roots stand straight up in the air. So I think they dig a little bit better, and you can increase your combine speed a couple of tenths of a mile an hour by using some of these prohexadione calcium products. But it's hard for me to put data on that. It's hard to explain that at a research level. And so, that's just one of those things you're going to have to kind of figure out for yourself and see if an increase in combine speed is worth the price of a ProHex application. And then the last thing you guys asked about for 2022 was a seeding rate trial. I do want to kind of throw this out there. This was the most difficult that we had to deal with, mainly because we were worried about doing a single row versus twin row. I thought we had a good twin row planter here at the Delta Center, and I was mistaken. So we kind of had to battle with it for a little while. Because of that, this trial actually was planted much later than the rest of our trials. And even though we did a lot of work into it, we poured a lot of money into that planter, it still turned out to be not a very good planter for us. And it doesn't have a liquid rig. And so we were scrambling trying to find some dry inoculant. I don't know how much dry inoculant you've ever used, but it's not the greatest. There's a reason why most people use liquid. And so because of inoculation issues, poor stand with that planter that we had for twin row, we actually lost the location of this. We only had one location that had a good stand and something that I was a little bit confident in. And then we ended up, because this stuff was planted later, it was later coming out. We caught a lot of fall rains on it after we had dug, and so this just did not turn out good for us. But we did have one location. It was a small plot, 4 replicates. But here's our yield response to that. Again, pay attention to this p-value. We don't see statistical differences in our yields. This data is a little more variable, but remember this is one location versus 2. If we had 2 locations, these would level out a little bit better, I think. But we don't see a yield response. Remember, our current recommendation right now is mine personally is about 6 to 7 seeds per row foot. And we don't see a yield increase really beyond that. You do see, numerically, again, this is not statistically different. Numerically, I could see where you might make an argument for 8 seed per row foot in a twin row configuration. I know not a lot of our guys are doing twin row, and to be honest, with 1 year worth of data, I'm not ready to recommend anybody to go to twin row if they're not already doing that and trying to increase that seed rate. If you are on twin row, you might bump it up to say from 6 to 7 or 8 just to see if you get a response out of it. But again, I'm still pretty confident with that 6 to 7 seed per foot. And in our single row, we don't see much difference there between any of our seed rates. Now I know some of you are going to be thinking, well, 4 did pretty good. Why don't we back it off to 4? Yeah, if we get a good stand of peanuts, I think we can make a good peanut crop out of 4 seed per foot. The problem with that is you have no insurance. We were fortunate here. Like I said, we had one location that didn't get a good stand, and so we ended up culling that. But that was across the board for all seed grains. If you're on a production level and a lot of acres, and you plant around 4 to 5 seed per foot, and something happens and we don't get a good stand, you don't have any insurance standing out there. We can make a crop with 4, and so that's why I like to recommend 6 to 7, because if we lose some of it due to adverse conditions, we'll still pick up that yield with a stand of 4 to 5. So no yield response, but I'm sticking with my recommendation for now on this single row 6 to 7 seed per foot. 6 to 7, not 67. All right, then looking forward to 2023. We're going to repeat the 3 studies that you guys funded last year, the gypsum, the Prohex, and the seed rate that we just discussed. Then also we've got some new trials coming up where you guys, the Missouri peanut growers actually have funded a variety trial where we're going to be looking at about 10 different varieties, including some high oleics, some Spanish types, some different things to see kind of what yields well around here. I'm thankful for Delta Peanut. I think that's going to work with us on getting some varieties, plus a group that is trying to push some varieties through Dynagrow. And so they're going to send us a few varieties, some high oleics and some standard runner types, but they have a little bit shorter maturity. And so I'm kind of excited about that and ready to see what those look like here in our environment. And then we also have a cotton peanut rotation study coming up that we'll be doing. This is funded by the Missouri Fertilizer Control Board. And I know cotton peanut is a pretty common rotation for us. And so we're going to be looking at cotton behind cotton, cotton behind peanut, doing a nitrogen response curve on that sequential cotton crop to see how much added benefit, at least in soil health and nitrogen response, do we get from rotating with something like peanut. Be looking forward to getting an update at the end of the year and really kind of capping off some of these data sets that we started this year and adding to those. We'll be able to draw some really conclusive results from that after this year, and then starting some new stuff that we'll be continuing on in the next few years. With that, I want to say, first of all, thank you, Missouri peanut growers, for funding this research, for contributing to the program. Peanut is a crop that I love to work with. I did a lot with it at Mississippi State, so It's great to have the opportunity to continue a lot of that work here in Missouri. I really enjoy representing you guys and helping you in any way I can. If you need anything, give me a call. This is my cell phone number. Shoot me a text or email. Make sure you follow me on all the social media platforms to receive updates kind of as we go throughout the year. I'll be telling you about what I'm seeing on the extension side of things, but also what is going on in the research field. And then if you're a podcast listener, we actually have started a podcast called the Mo Crops Podcast. It comes out every couple of weeks. We're talking all things Missouri agriculture. So be sure to go give that a listen if you like and enjoy podcasts. With that, if you guys have any questions, give me a call, shoot me an email, shoot me a text, and I'll be glad to answer those. Appreciate it.